Imagine strapping yourself to a rocket, calling it a motorcycle, and hoping gravity doesn't throw hands with you at 200 miles an hour. Well, that's MotoGP. Crashes? They're not a maybe. They're guaranteed.
Oh, one of the Ducatis has gone. Both the Ducatis have gone down.
Oh, a huge crash. Oh!
Some guys bounce up like they stepped on Lego.
Oh, he's down, he's down, he's down. He saved it. How does he do it? To the moon. Whoa, what a save. Well, look at the what a save.
And others, yeah, not so lucky. So, let's look at the absolute worst MotoGP crashes of this century. There are crashes that make you go, oof, and then there's ones that make your stomach drop. Marco Simoncelli's crash at Sepang in 2011, sadly, it was the second kind. Simoncelli was box office. The big hair, the elbows out riding style, and personality as wild as the way he attacked corners. He had that chaotic energy about him where you'd think he might do something insane this lap. Fans loved him for it. He was tipped to be a future world champ. Sepang 2011 was supposed to be another chapter in his rise. But on lap 2, disaster struck.
That's Marco Simoncelli's had a horrific crash. That's an awful crash here in the MotoGP race.
Simoncelli lost the front, started to slide, and then his bike caught traction again. Instead of skidding off harmlessly, it dragged him back across the racing line, straight into Colin Edwards and Valentino Rossi. Oh my god, the impact was horrific. His helmet even came off in the crash, which is something you almost never see. The race was red flagged immediately. In those next minutes, I still remember watching it live, waiting for that miracle update, hoping he'd bounce back up like they always do. But it never came. He was rushed to the Circus Medical Center, and a mere 45 minutes later, the worst was confirmed. Marco had passed away.
Carissime Martina e Kate, e vorrei farlo con tutta la tenerezza che voi meritate e con il garbo di cui sono capace. Chi vi parla non ha vissuto il dolore lacerante che vi brucia in cuore, ma permettetemi di venire a voi con l'abbraccio di tutti, con la preghiera di molti. Vi confesso che per il groviglio dei sentimenti che mi si arruffano in cuore ho fatto fatica a trovare le parole più giuste per questo momento.
After suffering massive head, neck, and chest trauma, the paddock was devastated. Rossi, one of his closest friends, looked broken. The fact that Simoncelli's helmet came off became a massive talking point. So much so that helmet manufacturers at MotoGP's governing body, FIM, increased their focus on helmet design, fit, and strap security. Standards for test and retention systems were made stricter too. The tragedy was a brutal reminder that behind all the showmanship, MotoGP's still a game of life and death. And if Sepang 2011 was the darkest day, the next crash on our list shows that even MotoGP's biggest legend, the Doctor himself, wasn't immune to disaster. If MotoGP had a main character, it's Valentino Rossi. The guy was arguably bigger than the sport.
Rossi up the inside, Rossi retakes the lead. Valentino Rossi goes into the lead in the Italian Grand Prix.
Huge wheelie as Valentino Rossi becomes the world champion 2009.
Valentino Rossi wins here in Qatar.
The Doctor wasn't just a nickname, it was a full-on brand. Now Mugello was his backyard, with hundreds of thousands of people absolutely certain he was gonna win. The place was a sea of yellow, people screaming their lungs out, expecting Rossi to put on a show. And then, Saturday practice.
Oh, that's Valentino Rossi's down.
I saw some dust and I waited. And he's damaged his right ankle by the look of things.
He landed so hard you could practically hear every Italian fan's heart stop on a dime. Doctors sprinted over and Mugello went dead silent. He was rushed to the medical center for x-rays, while we all held our breath, praying he'd be okay. Minutes felt like forever. Then came the news. He'd broken both his tibia and fibula. Just like that, the man who never missed a MotoGP race was out of action.
Pronto? Ciao Giovanni, ciao a tutti. Sono Valentino.
Valentino! Bene, come stai?
Bene, sto abbastanza bene, dai.
Ok. Senti, come ti senti per la prima volta a guardare una gara in televisione dal 96?
Naturalmente mi sento malissimo e volevo fare questa telefonata per salutare tutti i tifosi, tutti quelli che sono lì a Mugello. tutti quelli che mi salutano, che hanno fatto le iscrizioni. Mi mancate molto.
For the first time ever, the doctor needed doctors. Yeah, the irony writes itself. In his championship hopes, toast. Mugello went from being rock concert to funeral home in about 10 seconds. And I'll admit, seeing Rossi airlifted away from his home race was painful. Despite Rossi ended up second in the all-time list of world champions, he'll always be my GOAT. And while he was healing up, a few thousand miles away, a teenager was about to face a crash so violent, it wasn't just about racing anymore. It was life or death. Some crashes you watch and they get burned into your brain forever. Shoya Tomizawa's accident at Misano in 2010, yeah, that's one of those. Tomizawa was just 19, a kid, but he wasn't riding like one. This guy had already made history earlier that season by winning the very first Moto2 race in Qatar.
History being made. Shoya Tomizawa, 19 years old, is going to win the very first Moto2 Grand Prix.
He was fearless, aggressive, and had that "I'll send it no matter what" mentality. You could tell he was going places. Everyone knew he'd be a future champion. Misano was supposed to be another stepping stone for Shoya. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. On lap 12, he lost control through turn 11. At first glance, it looked like your everyday slide. You know, the type where a rider skids off, kicks some gravel and sulks back to the pits, but this wasn't that.
Oh my goodness, that's a crash for Tomizawa.
Tomizawa's body slid back into the racing line, and in Moto2, with the pack bunched tight, that's the absolute worst place to be. Alex DeAngelis and Scott Redding were right behind him, flat out, and there was nowhere to go. And then, impact. They hit him at full speed. The whole paddock just froze. Tomizawa was rushed to hospital, but a few hours later, the news we were all dreading came. Sadly, he didn't make it. 19 years old, and just like that, a whole career, a whole life, gone. It was one of the darkest days the sport's ever seen. Afterwards, MotoGP tightened things up, mandatory chest and back protectors, tougher bike crash tests, and faster medical response systems. And if Tomizawa's crash showed how cruel fate can be, the next one was a chilling reminder that no amount of skill can stop a disaster waiting to happen. If MotoGP ever had a glitch in the Matrix, it'd be Marc Marquez. The guy spent half of his career looking like he's made a deal with physics to just not apply to him.
What potentially cost him pole at this stage. Oh, dearie me, it was more than a mistake. Look here what happened to Marc Marquez then, and he loses the front, and as ever, he saves it at turn 10. What on earth? How did he save that?
2020 at Jerez was supposed to be business as usual, Marc doing Marc things. And honestly, for the first half of the race, it was. At one point, he had a save so ridiculous, it looked like his front tire had filed for divorce. He's skidding across the curb, elbows scraping, bike practically horizontal, and somehow he keeps it upright.
The circuit. How's he stayed on board? What a save! He's back to his old tricks. Back to his old tricks. Welcome back to MotoGP, Marc Marquez on the elbow.
Absolute witchcraft. But the racing gods don't like show-offs. A few laps later, while charging back through the field, he clipped the curb at turn 3. The Honda snapped, and Marquez went full eject button. Huge high side.
Marc Marquez is down. He's gone again. Oh, that's a big crash. He's not saving that one. I hope he's all right, because that's a fast one.
When he staggered up, clutching his arm, you knew it was bad. Broken right humerus. Most riders would call it a season. Not Marquez. He had surgery, got a titanium plate, and was already trying to race again days later. Days. Like, bro, I don't even go back to the gym the same week I stubbed my toe. Because let's be honest, Marquez doesn't stay down for long. Injuries slowed him down, sure, but the guy's still rewriting records and terrifying anyone who lines up next to him. Marquez's crash showed even the toughest can break. But the next story, it's about a rider who had the speed to be champion, but a body that couldn't keep up. Dani Pedrosa was basically MotoGP's porcelain doll. On his day, the guy was untouchable. Smooth, fast, slicing through corners like he was carving sushi. But one bad crash, and like the click of a finger, everything shattered. Back in 2008, he wasn't just winning races.
And wins his home Grand Prix. Dani Pedrosa, riding the Repsol Honda, wins the Grand Prix of Spain and takes over the lead in the MotoGP World Championship 2008.
He was leading the championship. The title was his to lose. Sachsenring was supposed to be another easy points haul. He nailed the start, looked sharp.
And the race is underway.
Good start from Colin Edwards on the inside, also from Andrea Dovizioso. Pedrosa is going to hit the front in the first corner.
And then, lap 6 happened.
Oh, down he goes! On board with Dani Pedrosa, what a moment! On board with him as he crashes out in turn 1. He was just pushing that little bit too hard.
1 second he's motoring along, the next he's being catapulted into the air like MotoGP's answer to Angry Birds. The landing was brutal. Dani had a broken hand, broken ankle, and broken title hopes. Just like that, his championship went up in smokes. And what made it worse? It looked so minor, just the tiniest slip at turn 1, something you've seen 100 riders survive. But Dani's luck, non-existent. Fans started calling him the glass cannon. Deadly fast, but fragile as fuck. And honestly, it was heartbreaking. The guy had the talent to be a world champ, but fate seemed determined to keep him in one piece only half the time. But if Pedrosa's crash was fragile, the next one, unfortunately, was just terrifying. Because in Austria 2020, we didn't just see a crash. We saw motorcycles turning into guided missiles, and my go almost becoming collateral damage. It's lap 9. Johann Zarco and Franco Morbidelli are flat out down the fastest part of the track, basically trying to break the sound barrier. They touch at over 200 miles an hour, and all hell breaks loose.
Back off, dear me! What's happened here? Oh, a huge crash! Oh!
Both bikes explode into the air like they've been launched by Trump. And where do they go? Straight across the grass back onto the track, right at turn 3, and right into the path of Rossi and Vinales. I swear, if you freeze frame that moment, Rossi's probably got the same face I make when my mate orders Jaeger bombs at 5 in the morning. Pure horror. He even said later that he felt the shadow of the bike as it shot past.
After I was with Maverick, we enter in the turn 3 and I feel something arrive. I think that is the shadow of the helicopter, because sometimes the helicopter cross the racetrack, but after arrive the bike of Franco and an incredible speed, and also the bike of Zarco jump over Vinales, so over Maverick.
The race got red flagged instantly, and somehow, nobody was seriously injured. Zarco and Morbidelli walked away shaken but fine, which is insane when you think about what we just saw. But the paddock wasn't calm. Rossi looked pale in the garage, saying it was the most terrified he'd ever been on a bike.
How was that scary moment for you?
Yes, it was very, very scary. All 4 riders, but especially me and also Maverick, we were very lucky. We have to pray to somebody this night because the situation was very dangerous.
And when Rossi says he's terrified, yeah, you know it was bad. It was the closest MotoGP's ever come to a disaster without actually crossing the line. That heart-stopping scare in Austria instantly reminded me of the chaos at the start of the 2006 Catalan GP. Most GP crashes are one rider doing something silly, maybe 2 if it's messy. But Catalonia 2006, that was straight up MotoGP bowling. The race had literally just started. They barrel into turn 1, everyone bunched up, and then Toni Elias makes contact mid-pack.
Here at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, Spain, and we are underway. Oh, one of the Ducatis has gone down. Both the Ducatis have gone down. The red flag is out.
In seconds, half the grid is tumbling. Bikes are cartwheeling, riders are skidding, gravel's flying everywhere like a sandstorm. It looked less like a MotoGP and more like a boss fight in Elden Ring. Absolute mayhem. Watching it back, I don't even know where to look. Every corner of the screen had another rider eating dirt. The miracle, no one was killed. A bunch of guys limped away injured, but considering how violent it looked, similar to the last crash, it's crazy it wasn't worse. The race got red flagged, and when they lined up again, the survivors looked like they just had a good run around in Vietnam. And honestly, it became a classic example of why riders always say you can't win a race in turn 1, but you can definitely lose it there. While the 2006 pileup was defined by its chaos, another crash at the very same circuit 10 years later would be defined by something much, much darker. Because some crashes don't just change a race, they change the sport. And that's exactly what happened on the 3rd of June 2016, when Louis Salom went down. Salom wasn't just some backmarker, he was a fighter. In Moto3, he'd scrapped his way to wins and podiums, always in the mix, always refusing to give in.
It's going to be Louis Salom who wins the race. Brilliant ride from Salom. Wins his second. Salom has done it again. He's worked it out beautifully once more.
Louis Salom surely is going to win his 7th Grand Prix of the season. He's done it and he's increased his lead in the World Championship.
By 2016, he was grinding it out in Moto2, chasing that dream of eventually stepping up to the big stage. He was just 24, but during free practice, it all went wrong. He came into turn 12, lost control, and his bike hammered into the air fence with brutal force and insane speed. It looked nasty the second it happened. The marshals and medics rushed over immediately, and everyone watching knew this wasn't just another crash. The paddock went silent. A few hours passed with everyone lingering around, anxiously waiting for news, and then suddenly it broke. Louis Salom had suffered massive chest and abdominal trauma. He had passed away at only 24 years of age. Fans were devastated. Catalunya instantly changed the track's layout, ditching that fast turn 12 section and using the Formula 1 chicane instead. It was another sick reminder that in motorsport, safety changes always seem to come after someone pays the ultimate price. What makes it hit even harder is how much potential Salom had. He was tough, talented, and on the cusp of something bigger. Instead, he was one more rider etched into MotoGP's tragic history. And with Salom's crash, we come full circle. MotoGP can give us miracles, but it can also take everything away in an instant. MotoGP's improved a lot in terms of safety, but let's be real, when you're pushing 200 miles an hour with nothing but a leather suit and a rocket between your legs, it'll simply never be safe. And these crashes prove that it will never fully be tamed. I'll catch you in the next one, and as always, thank you for watching.